What makes us human? Is it our consciousness, our mind, our emotions? Nobody knows, so let me make the question even more complicated. Can we recreate humans artificially? With the rise of artificial intelligence, these questions have come up all the more frequently, and the idea of artificial humans or robots has become even more realistic. We can simulate synaptic connections with the computer circuit, but even if this physical manifestation successfully creates an intelligent being, can we call this being a human? Because after all, there's a lot more to being human than just having a billion neurons connecting with one another. There's something metaphysical, it feels like, something phenomenal when it comes to being human. That's probably why nobody can pinpoint the exact reason or thing that makes us human. The idea of robotic humans is as frightening as it is cool, but we don't have much to work with given the current state of human technology. Like, yeah, we have AI, but we're nowhere near an era dominated by robots, so I guess we can forget about this idea for now. Because I mean, surely nobody would think of creating a story out of it. Right? If you're at all a veteran of anime or manga, you've probably heard the name Naoki Urasawa. Well, then you've at least probably heard of the iconic Astro Boy series, which is one of the pioneers of modern manga, and a series written all the way back in 1952 by Osamu Tezuka. The series began serializing that same year in the Kobunsha Shonen magazine, and despite it being an icon in manga, it kind of looks like your general comic. The art style isn't anything special, but at the time, it was a revolutionary series. Both Urasawa and Astro Boy are now icons in the world of manga, one as an author and one as one of the pioneers of this kind of storytelling. Urasawa is now a renowned mangaka who is known for publishing some of the most suspenseful and mysterious thriller manga of all time, with the two most popular being 1994's Monster and 1999's 20th Century Boys. If you haven't read either of these series, you have a lot to catch up on. This man is like the Stephen King of manga. He combines mystery, suspense, and horror in ways that you could not imagine. There's a reason why both of these series are at times competing for being in my top 5, and Monster is sometimes like my third favorite manga of all time. Both of these manga have been recognized in the community as well, as they're considered masterclasses of writing for how they build mystery and a compelling narrative with two of the most iconic, beloved, and feared antagonists manga has ever seen. It should be noted that Urasawa has some other works, and as a fun fact, the dude is apparently also a musician. Now, some of his other notable works include Yawara, Sneeze, Mujirushi, Master Keaton, Happy, Pluto, Billy Bat, Asadora. Wait a minute. Wait, go back a few slides. No, go back more. Doesn't that kind of look like... That's right. This is a manga based on a manga that inspired hundreds of manga and is written by arguably the greatest manga writer ever. And now, it has an anime. I've always been the type of guy to prefer manga over anime, so when Pluto came out, I kinda said, that looks cool, but why the fuck would I watch the anime when I can just read the manga? It helps that Urasawa is known for his paneling and unique artwork when it comes to manga, so it was kind of a no-brainer. I was gonna read the manga. But of course, somehow I end up watching it through the anime for the first time, and yet I'm absolutely glad I did. At first glance, Pluto isn't anything special. The story takes place in a futuristic world dominated by highly intelligent robots that look entirely like humans. You might think that a society dominated by robots isn't a good thing, but that's the exact opposite of what it is. Because robots exist, humans don't have to fight in wars or do any of the dirty work. Society is pretty peaceful and robots live in peace with humans, mainly due to the laws placed on these robots. Laws that force AI to conform to their societal expectations, with the biggest of these laws being the one that states how robots cannot kill. Because robots, after all, have been designed to help humans, so therefore their most fundamental law should be to not kill humans, and it is. For the most part, this law is upheld. As I said, robots and humans live in peace. Humans befriend robots, and robots often adopt children and even form families for themselves. They even look like humans to the point where it's sometimes hard to tell which they are. If I show you two individuals, even though they're animated drawings, if I were to ask you, are they human or robots, you'd say they're human to probably both of them. But this is anime, so they're both robots. Of these millions of robots, there are 7 in the world that are the most intelligent. These 7 are well respected and highly advanced robots that help out a lot when keeping the world a prosperous place. Now, the story begins when one of these robots, named Mont Blanc, is suddenly killed. Mont Blanc was a symbol of peace and was loved by everyone, and yet he was killed. Of course, he had to be killed by a human because, as mentioned, robots are programmed not to be able to kill. So our protagonist, Gesicht, who is one of the top 7 robots in the world, sets out to find the culprit who, as I mentioned, is a human. Except, of course, he's not, because this is an Urasawa manga. So yes, the culprit is identified as a robot who's after the 7 super robots, and he leaves his mark after killing Mont Blanc, and the mark is 2 horns on the head of the deceased robot. And the 2 horns represent the Roman god of death, Pluto. So you might be wondering, how the fuck can a robot kill when there's literally programmed not to? It's like my computer that's programmed to run DaVinci Resolve at 60 FPS, but it runs it at 12. How can that happen? Oh wait, that happens all the time. If a robot disobeys what it's programmed to do, does that make it more advanced or more of a failure? If it does something unexpected and unprogrammed, is it a better creation than something that always obeys its programming? Because if you think about it, humans often disobey what they're normally meant to do. That's what makes them human. They make mistakes. So if a robot makes a mistake, does that make them more human? Is the perfect robot one that is like a human? Because after all, humans are the most incomplete. These are the kinds of questions Pluto dives into, and trust me, this is only the beginning. Not only does it bring up the common trope of what it means to be human, but it also discusses evolution. Though most of the cast are robots, they still grow and change despite being mechanical creations that theoretically are supposed to obey a set of algorithms. The beautiful paradox of Pluto is that the more incomplete and chaotic the AI gets, the more human and perfect they are as creations, because the goal of the scientists creating these robots is to make them more like humans. So taking that into account, the story also considers the ramifications of that, because after all, humans contain many positive things within their being, such as the ability to feel and express emotions, but that also comes with the negative counterparts of malevolence and oftentimes murder and crime. So this murdering robot isn't really a failed creation. It isn't something that society should condemn, is it? Even though it's killing, it's still the most revolutionary robot ever, because it's more human than all the other ones. When humanity created the perfect robot, they realized how they fucked up, and now they want to kill it. To better understand the plot of Pluto, let's take a dive into the world-famous pioneer manga, Astro Boy. So Astro Boy takes place in the distant future of 2003, which seemed distant back when Osamu Tezuka began writing in 1952, and in the story, humanity has developed technologically to create humanoid robots. The first chapter shows the progression as over time robots become more and more advanced and begin taking over, but like in Pluto, there are laws that govern these robots to always be kind to humans and to never kill. So the story revolves around a doctor named Tenma, which is kind of funny because that's like the main character of Monster, the other Urasawa work, and Tenma loses his son Tobio in a crash. Now Tenma is a really intelligent scientist, so this man decides that it makes sense to recreate his son as the ultimate robot to make it feel like he's still alive. So he spends a ton of time and resources on this perfect robot son he's trying to replicate, all for him to be a failure despite being able to do many things like talk, express emotion, and even launch himself like a rocket. So why is Astro Boy the robot a failure? It's because this genius scientist didn't think about the fact that robots can't grow, so instead he starts beating Astro Boy with a shovel. Yes, his genius creation being swung at by a fucking shovel. So Astro Boy winds up as a robot slave for a circus, where he's picked up by a professor by the name of Ochanomizu, who updates him like Apple updates iPhones every year until he's essentially a living, breathing rocket launcher. So a bunch of content that has nothing to do with Pluto goes on after this until we get transported all the way to the great kingdom of Persia, where another mad scientist is attempting to create the perfect robot. He winds up creating this giant robot that looks like a combination between a beetle and Machamp, and he names it Pluto, giving it the goal of killing all 7 intelligent robots. Does this sound familiar? Well, it's because this is the main premise of Pluto. Urasawa mentioned in an interview that you can actually watch on the Netflix channel that this was actually a very faithful recreation of Tezuka's work, and initially he was trying to create all the characters to be identical to the way Tezuka drew them, except his editor or somebody higher up told him, to draw them in his own style. So he tried to replicate Astro Boy as much as possible, but given that Astro Boy came out so long ago, it doesn't have any mature and deep themes. So of course, Pluto is a whole lot deeper. On the surface, Astro Boy looks like a comic series designed for a shonen demographic, and it takes the robot concept in a much less thought-provoking direction. Not to say that it's bad or anything, obviously, because it's iconic, but it follows a battle shonen mecha style of storytelling more than the psychological murder mystery characteristic of Urasawa. A lot of the characters are similar. In fact, their designs are almost identical in many ways, but in Pluto we're introduced to the tragedy of being a robot. When humans are faced with tragedy, we cry. When we are faced with challenge, we crumble. When we age, we forget. And when we are punished, we hate. It's our own incompleteness, our lack of strength that makes us human. There's pain in being human because we inevitably experience death, hate, and sorrow, but there's beauty in it as well, because we experience life, love, and happiness. To be human is to lack completeness, perfection, and to hate parts of our nature, but that's exactly what allows us to keep on living. We only wake up every day because we are imperfect, and because we are imperfect, we strive to become better. Something that is programmed artificially can only do so much as it is. It can follow through with the set of rules and exist without living, because it has nothing to live for and is governed by something artificial and physical, not something phenomenal like it seems to be with us humans. Except it can be argued that there's nothing phenomenal about our existence. We only feel emotions and experience perceptions due to the millions of neurons that inhabit our brain. Our brain creates our mind like a computer's hardware creates its software. In Pluto, we actually see robots that show emotion. They feel and perceive things almost like a human, and that's exactly what the ideal robot should be able to express. Almost all robots are imperfect because they are bound by rules in their AI, but the one robot that broke its rules was the one that was said to be perfect. In other words, the one that was most human. The robot that killed was the perfect robot, and its name was Pluto. Among the 7 intelligent robots is our protagonist Gesicht, who as mentioned is a detective hunting down the murderous robot. Gesicht appears to be human, but through his demeanor and actions you can tell he's a robot. Like, I mean, the dude's got a fucking cannon arm, but he also has a wife that he cares dearly for. He's made of some insanely powerful substance called zirconium, but he also feels compassion for others. This robot specimen feels more human than some actual humans in the story, and his progression is something truly unique that I can't speak to without spoiling. The same can be said about our other protagonist, another of the 7 robots, Adam, who is, I don't know, somewhat similar to Astro Boy. These 2 characters specifically have so much unknown backstory hidden in their AI, and their growth as robots into becoming more human, their experiences with emotion and artificial life, and their internal and external conflicts are the highlights of Pluto for me. The story is the combination of a shonen mecha, a murder mystery, and a psychological thriller. 3 completely different themes that shouldn't be able to work together, but it just does. One thing that really surprised me with this anime was how it was hardly like an anime. It didn't have a flashy J-pop opening with flashy animation, and it certainly didn't give off the vibe of an anime, especially considering that it's a Netflix series. But it also only has 8 episodes, which are an hour in length each, as opposed to the typical 20 minutes we get out of most anime and the 24 episode first seasons we generally see. Honestly, I found that this style worked really well for Pluto and it made it stand out from other anime. The art style is also nothing like other anime because it's very faithfully adapted from Urasawa's art, just like Monsters anime is, though Monsters anime is a lot older, so the animation isn't quite as good. The story almost feels like an actual murder mystery more than just another anime, which makes me wonder how this would be as a live action. If they could do One Piece good, I'm sure they could do Pluto or Monster or even 20th Century Boys good. Another thing that really surprised me with Pluto is the music, which really added a nice touch and was completely unexpected because I didn't think this would have anything crazy in terms of the music, but the way it adds to the psychological suspense of this story is just beautiful. There were times in the beginning where I was waiting in anticipation because there wasn't much happening, but once the characters and the themes are built, you're launched into this story quite literally like Astro Boy launches himself into trouble. Speaking of launching, launch your finger into that like button. The way Pluto handles themes of hatred and humanity combined with the genius writing of Urasawa and the absolutely stunning finale episode make for what is, in my opinion, a classic anime that deserves a lot more love. It doesn't have insane flashy animation or crazy long exposition, but it takes a simple topic and a kid's manga and turns it into a murder mystery that will have you needing a change of underwear.